Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here back again to talk about Chapter 13 of Tenmaku Cinema. This chapter is titled Kakariko Tenmaku. Let's get started. So like I said here in the beginning, the chapter title is Kakariko Tenmaku, obviously telling us this is a chapter all about Tenmaku, which is very interesting knowing how the last few chapters have played out. And again, like last chapter, chapter 12, this is very much another one of those seemingly just one-shot chapters, just sort of showing us a small glimpse into stuff that is going on while the main story with the shore is going on, which I'm not mad at all. I think this is another great chapter. But before we get into the chapter itself, just again to talk about two things. Of course, I've got many more Tenmaku Cinema videos on the channel, so if you're enjoying this and haven't seen some other ones, go check those out. But to get actually into it, what happened last time in Tenmaku Cinema, it was a chapter all about Bito learning to play his role as Shimada in the shore, and it was just a one-off chapter sort of showing off all of that. And a really good one, but completely unrelated to last chapter, we start off at Hajime's bedroom, which is a place we have seen many times throughout the series, as we just get some narration from Hajime's perspective, just saying like, it's the middle of summer break, and as they're making progress on filming the shore, Tenmaku is making sure that Hajime knows he's bored without saying a single word. As we see this interesting little panel here of Tenmaku just sort of possessing his scarf and moving it around, sort of messing with Hajime, just like touching him on his shoulders constantly. As Hajime is sort of reading the script of the shore, and he makes a note to just be like, regarding the script you wrote, I think it doesn't show how unimaginably irritable you normally are. As Tenmaku's like, what are you talking about? Are you just trying to diss my normal self? As Hajime's just like, man, he has picked up a lot of slang while he's been here, right? But Hajime's like, well, if that's the way you want to interpret it, or I at least just realized something after we started filming. You've written the bare minimum number of characters, and we can easily scrape by with shooting the locations and being a little creative. You've created a very minimalistic world where even middle schoolers could film a movie like this. As Tenmaku's just here just being like, obviously I wrote it so you could film it. Each project has its own budget and schedule, so creating a story with those constraints is a testament of a screenwriter's skills. And at this point, Tenmaku sort of starts laying on his back, just laughing, as Hajime's just like, hey, Tenmaku, why do you think you appeared before me? And he just sort of starts saying, like, I'm still not sure I fully believe that you worked with the legendary director Ryu Shirakawa, but why would somebody as talented as you come to an ordinary middle school student? And Tenmaku's like, hey, that's because as we enter a flashback, as on page 4, we actually get the title page of this chapter, as we see a very young Tenmaku standing there with Ryu Shirakawa beside him, as we're about to learn the connection between the two of them. But we see here that we are going back in time for this flashback to a movie production filming, where all of a sudden Tenmaku is just running up and he's like, hey Gramps, I'm here! As one of these stagehands or one of the extra filmers just yells out like, hey, Director Shirakawa, Taki is here. As Director Shirakawa, or Ryu, I'll probably just call him Ryu because that's a bit easier. Ryu's just like, hey, you made it, Taiki, we're shooting the huge climax today. And he's just like, come on, get over here and sit a tent next to me. As we see that, yes, this is a very young Tenmaku, and they know each other. And there's a bunch of sort of murmurings going around, and a bunch of the people are like, huh, a child? I thought Mr. Shirakawa wasn't married. Well, I heard he took in someone else's kid. They're not even related then. Then who kids is it? As you just keep on going saying, you remember that actress who killed herself a couple years ago? Oh, you mean the one who caused a scandal for an affair with a famous actor? Yeah, that's right, that's the one. It turned out she had a love child, and the kid hasn't got a single living relative. She played a big part in Mr. Shirakawa's works, so he looked after her. He had big aspirations for her. I guess that's why he couldn't turn a blind eye when it came to the kid. Sort of just giving us all of this lore on Tenmaku's origin, they're just like a small panel on the bottom of the page, which is just really funny, but it's a very natural sounding conversation that happens in the background, which I think just makes it even better the way that we get it. But we sort of just see Tenmaku thinking, like, the movie sets were my playground, as we see that Shirakawa is like, we're just not getting the sheen. Hey, Taiki, which line do you think works best? And we see that Tenmaku is holding the script for not the shore, a different movie, and this movie is called The Men Who Borrowed a Tiger's Tail, as he sort of points over like, I get this one, and Shirakawa's like, oh, and why is that? And Tenmaku's like, well, because when it's not said like it's sad, it makes it sound even sadder. And Shirakawa sort of takes this, he's like, oh, that makes sense. As we sort of get some more narration from Tenmaku's perspective, just going, Ryu Shirakawa had a ritual he'd often do where he'd invite over multiple screenwriters to work on a joint script. And eventually I even got to hang out in the writer's room too. Rumors about the circumstances of my birth had already spread at school, so I never really made any close friends. Instead, I found Ryu Shirakawa's enormous private collection of scripts and read everything I could get my hands on. I watched movies non-stop in his private screening room. I immersed myself in them until it all seemed to sink into me. As we see just like a young Tenmaku just like start kneeling on the floor with tons of scripts and books sitting around him. As we cut up to a more grown-up version of Tenmaku, the one that we actually saw a long time ago back there in chapter 3, 10 whole chapters ago, as we saw him in the background of like the phone screen or whatever when Hajime is trying to look for who Tenmaku may be. And we see Shirakawa walk out and sort of start to confront Tenmaku outside. He's just like, hey Taiki, how many joint projects have you participated in now? You've even written 3 as the main writer, haven't you? And he's just like, I'm putting your name in the credits of our next one, The Fang. And of course we know The Fang is the one movie that Shirakawa never was able to finish, and that was Tenmaku's whole thing of he wanted to finish writing The Fang with Shirakawa. But Tenmaku's like, hey, no need, I don't want to expose my name to the world. As soon as I use the name Shirakawa, people will start poking their noses into things. Besides, I already feel satisfied just contributing to being a part of a Shirakawa film. As we see Shirakawa just walks over and just punches Tenmaku in the head, just going, a writer takes responsibility for his work by putting his name on it. Don't think you can hide behind my back. And he's like, then how about this? I'll create a pin name for you. As we see that this pin name is Takehiko Tenmaku, being that, so this whole name, Tenmaku, is a pin name for him in a movie. As we see all this happening, and Shirakawa's like, you hold this name high and keep growing as a writer, even long after I'm gone. As we see all of a sudden, Tenmaku wakes up in his ghostly apparition appearance in a theater somewhere. Of course, this is theater where he ends up possessing Hajime, and he's just floating around and being like, I'm dead, aren't I? And right at the perfect time, of course. This is a Ryu Shirakawa directed work, Six Beasts, and he's just looking at the television screen, just like, this is the first scene. Man, it's even using the lines that I wrote. And he's just like, man, I'm sorry, old man. Who thought I would have been the one to go first? But he's like, but don't worry, you're still getting the Fang's final draft. Anyway, I guess I'll possess someone. It can be anybody, really, as long as it's somebody who looks competent. As we then see that Tenmaku sees Hajime there and sort of goes and possesses him, learns that Shirakawa has died 20 years ago and that he's now about 30 years in the future. And we see that he's just really distressed, as being like, man, there's no way. How could you have died too? And how has it already been 3 decades since my death? This has got to be a big joke planned on me. And we then see that Tenmaku is looking at Hajime's shelf. He's like, I don't see any movies titled The Fang. He's just like, I discussed the first draft with him, of course, and after that we traded several drafts later and discussed it with him, so he should have known most of the script, but he never filmed it. And we even see a little note here that Tenmaku's like, did he never shoot it for my sake? And he's just like, my old man. As he just gets really sad because, they had such a nice relationship, and that's such a nice thing, because the implication here is that there's about a 10-year gap between where Shirakawa was still alive, but Tenmaku was dead. So just out of like happiness and love for his sort of deceased son in a way, he didn't film the movie, and it's just a really nice thing. But we see Tenmaku sort of start some more. He's like, but this is him we're talking about. So after I died, he must have been really depressed. As we just see a bunch of like posters on Hajime's wall. As Tenmaku even looks around, he's like, wow, this Hajime kid even knows all those esoteric films. This kid must really love his movies. As he's like, movies. He's like, why did I come back at all times, but now? Like, I could have come back any time. Why is it now? As we see that we cut to the point now where Tenmaku first laid eyes on Kurai for the first time, and we sort of just get more notes of him just saying, Hajime, that day in the theater, I chose you because... As we sort of just see that he sees that Hajime was crying in the theater, and he writes the movie for Cry, and we just see them, two of them talking to each other. He's like, 30 years after my death, I met this boy on that day and in that spot. My old man, is this one of the scripts that you wrote? As we see that Tenmaku's now here, and he's just like, Hajime Shinichi, eventually the thing will need a director. And until I find them, you're the perfect person for me to kill some time with. As Hajime is just here very distressed after hearing this. Obviously, we sort of get the implication that Hajime will be probably the one to end up filming the thing, and that'll probably be the last story arc of this story. As Tenmaku is sort of just like, I appear in front of you because, yeah, you're going to be the one to write this story and film it for me, being that I can't anymore. You're going to be the one to bring this movie to light. And just seeing here, and we see that he sort of just gives a smile before he says that you're the perfect person to kill some time with. But we sort of cut back to reality as Hajime's like, yeah, fine, sure, if all I'm good for is fixing your damn boredom, right? As someone's like, hey, I'm kidding with you. But Hajime is just like, hey, anyway, you're the reason I'm making a film right now, and it has been very fun. As we see that Hajime sort of just puts his hand on his head, is like, so, thank you very much, sort of blushes a little bit. As we see it, Tenmaku is just like, oh, okay, what's gotten into you? Why are you being so formal? And he sort of starts getting on, he's like, anyway, if you finish the storyboard for the next shot, if Ryushi Kawa here, he's been all over that, right? And Hajime is like, I'll start already, geez, you're such a nag. As we finish off the chapter on that sort of really fun note. And this is a masterful chapter. It really just tells us the story of Tenmaku, and we learn finally the connection between him and Ryushi Kawa, being that, yeah, they had a very much father-son relationship, and because of that, Tenmaku worked on many movies with Shirakawa, and knowing that just tragedy that comes with how the thing works, and how all that sort of just appeared out of nowhere to sort of happen, and it's been a 10-year gap. It's just a really nice thing to see. And eventually just having to note that, yeah, Hajime will probably be the one to direct the thing, and it's all thanks to Tenmaku. So I really don't have too much to say about this chapter. Just a really good chapter giving us Tenmaku backstory, and I don't really know how the series is doing in the rankings so far. We should be getting Volume 1 here very soon. At this point, it's going to be in August, so probably by the time we get Chapter 17, Volume 1 will be out, so we'll just see however that works. But yeah, like I said, I've got plenty of other Tenmaku Cinema videos on the channel, along with a bunch of other videos talking about anime and manga related content. So if you like anime and manga and like this video, you may want to go check out those. And if you enjoy my channel that much, if you won't mind subscribing, dropping a like on the video and all that good stuff that we YouTubers ask you guys to do. And without further ado, again, great chapter Tenmaku Cinema, really giving us all that Tenmaku backstory. And yeah, with that, I don't have too much else to say. This will be Glowplasma231.